Do you want to play a game?
Yes, I'd love to play a game. I mean, that's literally what my whole channel is about.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that answer. I didn't actually bring any games with me. Do you have any recommendations?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. I feel like there are more good games for Halloween season than any other specific holiday or season in America. There's just games I'm excited to play every year when we get to October. Like, I always host Halloween game nights in the month of October, and I pull some of these games off the shelves every year. You know, there are plenty of other games that don't get played every year by me because I just have too many. But these games, I feel like at least get played once a year, and I often don't even play them at any other time during the year, but I'm super excited to play them during the month of October. So these are my top 10 games for Halloween season. I have one honorable mention for this list, and it is the Pumpkin Problem from Grand Gamers Guild. And the reason it's only an honorable mention is because it's not a game I can come back to every year. It is a one-time only played game, but it makes for a really good Halloween activity. It is an escape room in 18 cards, and there are very little instructions, so you can really just start playing it with anybody. It makes for a really good group game for like family or friends during October. There's a bunch of different puzzles for you to solve, and there's a narrative that goes along with it, which makes it feel thematic. You know, it feels like Halloween. It feels like you're in the mood, you know, when you're playing this. I also like that all the puzzles feel pretty different, and so there are times where you're playing it and you're like, I don't know how to solve this one at all. And then someone else is like, oh, I get this one. This is the only one I've gotten. And so then they take over. So everybody feels like they can contribute. The other nice thing is you don't destroy anything. So this is actually a thing you can play once and then just give it away to somebody else who hasn't played it. And then they can have fun for an hour with this activity. It's part of a larger series, the Holiday Hijinks series from Grand Gamers Guild. They have a lot of these little 18-card escape room style games that are themed to different holidays. There's one for Christmas, pretty much any holiday you can think of, there is one of these. So I think they're a fun activity, and it's cheap and it's small, and you can kind of bring it wherever you go. If you do want to check it out, I do have a discount code. If you use the code GRANT at Grand Gamers Guild, you get 20% off, and then it's less than $10 for this thing. So it is a fun activity, but it is a one-time only activity. So that's the Pumpkin Problem. All right, well, let's get into my top 10 Halloween games. In number 10, I have Zombie Dice. This is just a pure push your luck dice rolling game. There's not a lot of strategy here, but it is always frantic fun, you know, where you're just, I'm trying to like decide whether I want to push my luck. You know, it's the Yahtzee style dice rolling where you can set certain things aside and then keep rolling other things. But they do stuff that's a little bit different. You pull out a certain number of dice basically to start the round, and those dice are either green, yellow, or red, and the red ones have more bad things for you and the green ones have more good things for you, and so you can kind of see right there what you're pushing your luck with. And then there are these symbols on the dice. There are feet, and you have to re-roll those, and so there's a little bit extra than just pure dice rolling, but it is mostly dice rolling. There's not a ton of strategy here. But this is a game that can fit into a pocket or a purse, that can be taken anywhere, that literally can be explained in 30 seconds. So if you're just going to like a Halloween night that isn't a game night, this is kind of one to like put in your pocket and be like, man, anybody want to play a game? And you can, you know, it's got enough energy to it that people will see you from around the party and come over and want to play it. And it's a fun zombie theme. You are trying to get brains and avoid shotguns. So again, very light and fun, but you know, I love push your luck, and so Zombie Dice is a good one if you're at like a non-Halloween game night. Also number 9 here, I have One Night Ultimate Werewolf. This is also a good game for a party. It's probably better for like an actual game night than a random party like Zombie Dice would be, because there's a little bit more of a rule set. Yet, it does play quickly. I mean, every round is like 10, 15 minutes. And so in the game, it is in the world of Werewolf. And so, all of these games in the Werewolf line there are hidden objectives, and you don't know who's who, and you're trying to figure out who's who, and some people are villagers, and some people are werewolves, and the werewolves want to eat the villagers. And so it's the same thing like that. But in One Night Ultimate Werewolf, instead of in the base game Werewolf, the original game that came out, like there's a bunch of nights and people are dying along the way. Well, this is literally a single night, so everybody is closing their eyes only for one time, and and so that's why it plays really quickly, is because it is a single night. And so everybody gets a role too. There's nobody that's just like, I don't know what I am. No, everybody gets something to do. Everybody gets a cool special ability, a cool power, and you're trying to figure out who the werewolves are and stuff like that. It plays so quick that it's one of those ones where it's easy to just replay again. You're almost like the first time you play it, it's just like a teaching game. Oh, you get it, let's play it again, let's play it again, let's play it again, and you can play it a bunch of times. And the werewolves make it feel, thematic to Halloween season. In number 8, I have Tower of Madness from Smirk and Dagger Games. This is essentially a Cthulhu-themed Kerplunk game. There is a large tower, and you are at some point having to pull tentacles out of the tower, and then marbles might fall out of the tower. And some marbles are good for you, and some marbles are bad for you. At its core, though, it is another push your luck dice rolling game. You are rolling dice trying to hit a certain combination of symbols to sort of succeed at that round. And if you don't succeed, that's when you have to pull tentacles out of the tower. This is a game that doesn't have, there's a healthy amount of luck in the game. So, know that when you're going into it. There's dice rolling, there's pulling tentacles, you don't know what marbles are going to fall out. But it looks so cool, and it's so fun to pull these things. There's so much tension in the game. This is one that really can work for casual gamers, that can work for families, with kids that are a certain age, because it's fun to pull those tentacles. And, the reason it's not a little bit higher here is because there is a lot of luck, but it's still what I want to play every year because it's just fun to look at, and it's fun to pull tentacles out of this tower. So, Tower of Madness for sure. Number 7 for me is actually a new game that I'm excited to keep playing every year now. It just came out this year, so this is my first Halloween season playing it, but it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse from Funko Games. And the reason I like this one is it is a one versus many game, and I admit I like playing as the one in those games. I get to control the bad guys in the game. I get to control the murderous family, and everybody else is playing as survivors just trying to survive and get out of there. So the survivors will be moving around the house and searching for different items like gas and keys, and that will help them escape. And as they're moving around, the murderous family is just pursuing them and trying to attack them. You're attacking with these dice, and every time a survivor, a trespasser moves around, they can create noise, and noise turns into fear that the murderous family can use against them. And there's actually a decent amount of strategy in this game. There's another Texas Chainsaw Massacre game that came out recently that I also enjoy. This one has a little bit more strategy to it, so it's the one that I personally want to play a little bit more. The other one I think is great for casual gamers. Like if I was playing with a bunch of people that haven't played games before, I would for sure play the other one from Trick or Treat Studios, but this one is the one I'm going to pull out onto my own table probably more, and it does feel very thematic. It's very creepy. It's very sort of gory. It is uncomfortable at times, just the visualization of stuff, you know. You're like, oh man, this is a bunch of weirdos and creeps here, and I'm controlling them. So it's fun to play as the bad guys. If you like one versus many games, this is a good one and feels very thematic for Halloween with the horror theme here. Number 6 for me is Mansions of Madness. And this is a well-known game. It is a sort of mystery-solving game, an exploration game. You are going into this mansion and revealing tiles and trying to solve a problem. There are different scenarios that are run by an app, so in every scenario, there's going to be different things to solve. And that's one of the things that, you know, keeps it very replayable. I can come back to this every year and play a different scenario. I haven't played through all of them, so the game can always feel new every time I've played it. It's always going to have that sort of flip out tiles and explore and do different, move around and fight bad guys. You know, oftentimes those bad guys are monsters or different Cthulhu themed stuff. And so there is, you know, there's some mechanical similarities to all of the scenarios you're playing, but the thing you're solving is always different, and I like that because it keeps it replayable. This is one where it's fun to have multiple people around the table and playing a scenario and setting the mood. Now, the reason why it's number 6 on my list and not higher is a lot of the scenarios do have a very long playtime. You know, the session length is gonna be like 4 hours a lot of times. So if I'm bringing people over for a Halloween game night, this is the only game we're playing if I'm pulling this game out. And so, you know, I prefer games that have more of like a 1 or 2 hour playtime. And so that's why this one doesn't hit as high on the list, but it is still very fun and it feels very thematic and it's spooky, you know, all the different, there's, you can play music with it. There's just a lot of fun things to explore and a lot of replayability in the game. So Mansions of Madness, definitely one to check out. Number 5 for me is a game that I feel like not enough people know about, and it is Psycho Killer. This is like a fun, quick playing card game that feels very thematic to like 1980s horror movies. They have all of the classic horror tropes in here of like you dropped your keys and you can't start the car and all of this sort of stuff. All of the things that you're like, that's a B horror movie, they are in this game. The game plays a little bit like Exploding Kittens, where you are really mostly just trying to avoid picking up a psycho killer from the deck. And all of the other cards that you have are played in service of trying not to pick up a psycho killer. You're forcing other people to pick up stuff. You are searching through the deck. You are doing different things and just trying to avoid a psycho killer. When a psycho killer comes out, there are weapon cards that will get played in front of you. Oh, a chainsaw, oh, a meat hook, oh, a pickaxe, you know, things like that. And when a psycho killer comes out, you're taking the amount of wounds as those weapon cards in front of you. And it's one that like it's another one that I can teach pretty easily. It's quick to play. You know, a game of it takes about 30 minutes and it's just cards. And so they also have a bunch of expansions to the game, so you can play just base, you know, 1980s horror tropes, but then you can add zombies into it. You can add a bunch of other stuff with these little card expansions that make the game even more replayable and fun. So if you're looking for like a card game that feels very thematic to B horror movies, Psycho Killer is a great one to check out. Number 4 for me is Paranormal Detectives from Lucky Duck Games. And if I want to play a silly Halloween game, this would be my go-to. This feels very party, silly-esque, but also, you know, very thematic to the Halloween season. Paranormal Detectives is a one player plays as the ghost, and so the ghost is giving clues to the other people, and they are trying to figure out how the ghost died. but the way that you give clues are oftentimes very silly. I will have to draw on somebody's back, and then that's how they get information. Or I have a string to use, and I'm trying to put the string in different places, and and make a certain object, give a clue by putting this string in a certain way. Or I have a Ouija board, and I'm moving this around to give you letter clues, and so it feels very silly. It is not a cooperative game. It is a competitive game. You are essentially trying to be the first to figure out how the ghost died. But it's always very silly and fun, and it's another one that, can play fairly quickly, pretty easy to learn. I think it would work for kids and families and things like that. But it's one I pull out all the time because it's, where a lot of these games we're talking about, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the Mansions of Madness, feel a little sort of darker and heavier. This one feels more light and silly in the Halloween genre. So I love playing it, especially with like new casual people for sure. Number 3 for me on my top games for Halloween season is Horrified. This is from Ravensburger, and this is a cooperative game where you are picking up and delivering stuff around the board, but you are fighting, you're trying to defeat various classic monsters. In the base game of Horrified, the original game, you are trying to fight these, sort of classic old movie monsters like Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Bride and Dracula and the creature from the Black Lagoon, things like that. There's some asymmetry to the bad guys, to the monsters. They're each gonna have different ways to defeat them. And one of the things I love the most about Horrified is it scales in difficulty really, really well. You can play an easy game and you're only fighting 2 monsters, and then you can add a monster and it makes it that much more difficult. Or you can add multiple monsters, and it just, if I'm introducing it to people for the first time, I can easily play a novice game, and if I'm playing with more experienced people, I can easily play a harder game and give us a challenge. And it's one of those games that feels very cooperative in that we all need to be talking about what we can do on our turns. That's how we're going to win, because we have limited actions. So while I don't think that there's quarterbacking, I think that everybody should be talking, hey, if you could do this on your turn, I needed to do this. Well, oh, maybe I should do this instead. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. You're always just sort of talking and figuring out how to defeat these monsters. So if you like cooperative games, Horrified is one of the best ones. There are a couple of new versions that have come out or just came out too. So if you're not into like Dracula and those classic movie monsters, there's also the Cryptid American, I forget what it's called, but the second one was all about like American monsters like Bigfoot and things like that. And then the third one is classic like Greek monsters. And that one just came out, I think, only a few weeks ago, actually. And so there are different monsters to play. I think the mechanisms work mostly the same, but different monsters in the different versions provide you different ways to play and different things you need to do to beat them. So, number 2 for me is Mysterium. Now, I know that some people are sort of over this game or sort of, done with Mysterium. It's one of the games that got me into board games, and so I think there's a nostalgia factor here for me, but I love it. I want to play it all of the time. It is a game where one player plays as the ghost and everybody's trying to figure it out, just like Paranormal Detectives. This one's not as silly as Paranormal Detectives and probably a little bit more strategic, but the ghost is giving everybody else visions with these really sort of cryptic and yet beautiful artwork cards. So this is a game that took the card system, the card style, I should say, from Dixit and then put it in their own game. And so, like Dixit, where there's these weird sort of dreamlike cards and they don't mean anything essentially, but you can kind of interpret them however you want. So the ghost is giving out those types of cards to other people who are then, trying to interpret the cards and figure out what clue the ghost is trying to get them. And each player is trying to get a person, place, thing, sort of like a clue, right? Oh, I'm trying to get you to guess that you're the guy with the thin mustache, and so I'm playing this card where there's like a guy with a top hat and a mustache in the card. Maybe you'll get it. Sometimes it's more esoteric than that. Hey, this lady has a red shawl on and this card has a lot of red in it. You know, that sort of thing where you just kind of have to interpret it. And it is cooperative for everybody in the sense that you are trying to figure out together this lineup of suspects. And then once everybody has figured out their own suspect, then we all put them sort of in the middle and we have to pick out the one murderer. And so I think it's very interesting because whoever is playing as the ghost, it makes the game feel very different because everybody has different brains that work in different ways. And so you're like, wait, what? That's what you were trying to say? And so there's always this interesting debate and conversation around it, and feels very thematic to me for sure. So I love playing Mysterium every October. I rarely play it outside of October, but it's a game I come back to and have been coming back to for years during the October season. And my number one game for Halloween is The Night Cage from Smirk and Dagger Games. This is one of the creepiest games I've ever played, and I mean that in a really good way. It feels so like immersive. You are in a labyrinth of eternal darkness, and you are moving around this labyrinth trying to collect keys to get out of the labyrinth of eternal darkness. But why it feels so thematic is you are on a tile and you're holding a solitary candle, so you only illuminate tiles in one space away. I can't see down this hallway. I can't see because this candle doesn't give me enough light. So if I move on to a new tile, certain other tiles will fall away into blackness and they come off of the board. And so that tension is very interesting where you're like, I don't know which way to go. We got to figure it out. And there are monsters that come out and can attack you. And it just feels... It's a cooperative game, but it feels like high tension all the time. Where I'm like, every time I'm playing it, I'm like, I'm moving my fingers, I'm rocking in my chair because I'm like, oh, I don't know how we're gonna do this. How are we gonna do this? I know some people. I haven't done this before, but I need to do this. I know some people that play this game by candlelight. They turn off all of their lights and put candles out, and boy, does that make it feel even more immersive. There is a soundtrack that you can get from Smirk and Dagger with spooky sounds that you can play along with it, and so, it is a game where there is a certain amount of luck to it, but I'm okay with that because the game plays usually in under an hour. And the reason there's luck is that you're just revealing tiles at certain points, and you could get like a bunch of monsters in a row and just die. It could be possible, but you can reset the game pretty easily and play it. So it's not a game you're guaranteed to win every time. But that's why winning it makes it feel really good because, we might have just lost a game, now we won, yeah, we got our act together, we did great. And so The Night Cage is just always super fun to play. If you like cooperative games with high tension, check it out. So there we go. Those are 11 great games to play during the Halloween season. I hope you have a great spooky one, and these games definitely make it feel very thematic for a game night. I'll be hosting a Halloween game night soon. So, all right, thanks so much, everybody. I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex.